It finished Man City 2, Arsenal 1 in what was deemed the big title decider yesterday. So we're going to open it straight up. You've got the resident City fan here, the resident Arsenal fan here. So one-on-one discussion. Jamie, what do you make of the game?
Well, this was the game. I do think it was a big title decider, but not a concrete one, if that makes sense. I think if Arsenal won, the gap turned too big for how many games are left. And if it was a draw, it kind of, I don't know, everyone's kind of a bit in limbo. With City winning, now it's literally neck and neck. You can't get much closer, especially with the goal it's on goal difference if City win their game in hand. So yeah, absolutely sort of brilliant sort of title deciding game. In terms of how the game went, City would I think were definitely on top in the first half, and when they got the goal, you thought, okay, we've kind of controlled it here, and we've got the very good goal by Cherky, by the way, like to sort of work that well in the box with so many people around him. You got Gabriel who's nearly on the floor, Rice just behind, and then he puts it into the far corner, sort of curling it in. It's a very good sort of taken goal, and from there you thought City might actually go on and possibly dominate the game. Arsenal could have gone dropped their heads massively and then struggled. Then it sort of fell apart with a mistake, Donnarumma. But that's where teams do, and you don't see that goal much. But when things happen like that, it can be it's an annoyance, and especially in such a big game. I think City did play pretty well. It's not. I wouldn't say it was their best performance of the season, but I think they kept up to a very high standard. I think O'Reilly was very, very good. Then you saw the battle, Gabriel, Haaland constantly at each other, rip shirts, constant sort of stuff going on. These are things we want to see in football. It's a great battle, and when it's the top two teams doing this, like when City and Liverpool were going at each other, there's some great games, and that's what we want about football. So I was also glad that Arsenal didn't come back and sit back and play completely for the draw. I don't think they actually had that intention of sitting really, really deep for it. When they sat deep, it was because City had possession, but they did also press forward. The posts got hit four times, two each. Eze's one absolutely unreal strike. So unlucky from him not to put it in. It was a really good game of football. It's not going to be best ever Premier League ones, but it's still, I'd say, a good fit for the Premier League to see the top two teams actually have an entertaining game.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I think, this was a really good advert for the Premier League. The team, the second versus first in the table going at it. I think there's been a lot of criticism over the league over the years when it comes to these games. They just become a chess battle, pure tactics, pure too afraid to lose. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that because when you're in such a high pressure stakes game, you want to make sure that you preserve it. But both teams went at it. Both teams really had a go, and it could have gone either way. Like you said, it was a very finely poised game. You know, I know some of the stats were in favour of some teams and one team over the other, but the reality is it was a close game. The post hit four times. Arsenal bounced back immediately. It had a lot, and Arsenal could have nicked in, a goal at the end. So I think there was a lot of positives from this game in general for both teams to take. I think it's probably a shame that this is happening now than not in, say, February, where we would probably been delve into the things a little bit deeper. But it was overall a really good game with both teams going toe to toe. And I think there's credit that's due on both sides and there's criticism that's due on both sides. But the credit, I think, for me, from what I see from City is, again, the mentality going at it when it matters. And for Arsenal, who I know we've been criticized, I've criticized the mentality, but the reality is, they went for it here and they went again toe to toe. They didn't lose 4-0, 5-1, whatever. They lost 2-1. So they showed what they're capable of as a team. They really showed it. And I think it was a great game for the neutral as well. So, it was great, despite the obviously the result. But, I'm not gonna knock that, from my general thoughts. It was a good game.
Yeah, yeah. In terms of sort of like the goals, how did you sort of see, sort of, I mentioned about the Cherky one, from an Arsenal point of view, how did you see that one? Because are you disappointed with the sort of Eze not winning the initial ball? I think it was Nunes who chested it just over him to Cherky. From an Arsenal point of view, there was a good clip actually I saw of when Nunes made that chest pass. You saw Arteta sort of react in a negative way, like he knew that was sort of like something you needed to win to stop our attack in that moment, which eventually led to the goal. Do you see that as a disappointment from an Arsenal perspective because, or do you think it was just such a class goal, or a bit of both? To be honest.
Yeah, it's definitely a bit of both. I see it as, I agree. I think hindsight's a wonderful thing, and it's easy to go, you should have won this, you should have won this. Every person probably has a reason to be blamed. But then you look at how great Shirky has been, the way he's able to, outside the box, dance his way through. It's a great goal. You have to accept class when class happens. It's easy to say what could have been done, but in that moment as a human being, you probably don't think it. And Shirky deserves, I think we should be praising Shirky more than we should, how that goal went in. And it was a great goal. And you just have to sometimes admit quality comes through, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And then I think from quality to disaster in a couple of minutes from the Donnarumma one. So when I saw it, like I know everyone, the mistake is from Donnarumma. I have seen a few people blame Nunes for throwing it to him, but I'm like, I don't see how you can do that when Donnarumma's the one with a bit with space. Really, I think that's ridiculous to blame Nunes for making the throw to him. However, I don't think it's that bad of a mistake, and I think it's actually very good pressing from Havertz. Sort of the ball, the only place that really Donnarumma had a option open was that side. So yes, it is obvious where it's going, and the argument, the mistake for me is he could have done it quicker. If he does it a bit quicker, Havertz can't physically get anywhere near it. But I think people also have to realise from us City fans is he's not Edison. Edison does not concede that goal. Edison probably takes it and dribbles round Havertz. He's that type of maniac in that way and has the ability with his feet. But Donnarumma's going to do that. I would expect a lot of goalies in the Premier League to do exactly what Donnarumma did. And the good thing I saw about it was the reaction of the players. They straight away went, right, come on, don't worry about it. It happens. Get on with it. And Donnarumma later on in the game made sort of a brilliant save. I think it might have been Havertz later on in the second half, and then it sort of like went near the line and O'Reilly got rid of it. But it's them sort of moments is why we have Donnarumma as the keeper for them saves, not exactly his kicking. Although his kicking isn't that bad. I think people underplay actually how good of a footballer he can kick it. But this was just a horrible error, and in a game like this, could have been really, really costly. Do you
Yeah.
disagree with me on that, or
Oh,
fairish?
it really summed up the game, didn't it? Of both teams had made errors early on, both teams hadn't settled, and this sort of came out of nothing. I agree with you. Edison wouldn't concede that goal, but I would argue that Edison would have probably conceded one of the goals later on. That's
Yeah,
the
yeah,
difference. Donnarumma is a better shot stopper, and that's it. He's not known for his feet, and he did it and got caught out. We can talk about Donnarumma's error as long as we want, but I think Kai Havertz deserves the credit here, like I'm crediting Cherky as the goal scorer, because players don't normally press. They let the keeper get on with it and stuff. And yes, it's rare that a goal happens from it. But if you just get a foot out, you get a foot out, you never know what's going to happen. And that's what happened. It deflected into the net as a result. And that's because of perseverance and taking that chance of if I do get something on it here, I could be getting a goal. And we don't see that properly. And he took advantage and it happened. And it just put the game back into that balance, which I think was really, 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 it summed up the game and it was frantic. And like I said, we can criticize the keep goalkeeping or the defending, but I want to praise both goal scorers because they did the right thing.
yeah. To be fair, whenever you see them sort of blocks, you always hear a crowd reaction like oh and all this sort of stuff, and it normally just ends up wide. So the fact it went in nearly top corner, by the way, was sort of it's fortunate in a way, but it's also like I said, it's good pressing by Havertz. It could have ended up anywhere if that had gone over. You'd have gone like, oh, fair enough, good pressing. If it had gone it like and it went in, you say good pressing, great goal kind of thing from him. Moving on to obviously the winner, Haaland's goal. From sort of my point of view, this is sort of I think Pep has worked on this exactly this scenario of O'Reilly getting the ball, bringing it forward, playing in Doku, and then being in space to have that ball back from Doku to play it across. Because there was a clip I also saw on X was we did the exact same roughly goal against Liverpool in the FA Cup match. So O'Reilly's in that position for a reason. This has been worked on in the training ground. Doku knows he's going to be there. So I think this is great teamwork from us, and it's sort of pinpointing that people worry about Doku so much. I've seen he got a bit of criticism because he's not scored many goals. He hasn't, to be honest, and that's probably something he does need to improve on. But when he gets the ball, normally teams are doubling up on him, creating that little bit of space, and that's where O'Reilly's getting these nice little pockets of areas he's getting, sometimes in the box, like for this goal, that's really, really good. Now, I do have one question for you, Reese. With Haaland's finish, he is holding on to Gabriel's shirt. As an Arsenal fan, do you think this should be a foul? Because I have seen it online. Some are saying it is a foul, some saying it's not a foul, and their reasoning is something to do with Gabriel, which we'll talk about after this goal. So yeah, what did you make of the grabbing of the shirt first before we talk about sort of like the build up as well?
It's one of those things like I don't really criticize officials because I think their job's impossible. And he's holding the shirt, yeah, but is it really that deep? I think there's still 90 minutes to put the ball in the back of the net overall. So I don't think Arsenal should feel aggrieved on this one because, like I said, is they should have been looking at winning games before this. So to be honest, I don't care. As simple as that. I don't care. No point looking back on that moment. There's another moment, a couple of moments we could probably discuss, but the reality is this side should have been more crucial in a few games ago. So tough luck.
Yeah, to be honest, I think throughout the game, Haaland, Gabriel were probably not, they were just joint at the hip pretty much. Their shirts were probably holding onto each other by the end of it, really, with how much they sort of battle and just sort of, physically go into it. So I think that works well for what I want to talk about is the possible headbutt from it. Now, VAR, from what I understand, said they didn't give the red card because they said it was Gabriel moving away from Haaland. That was his movement of moving away from Haaland and not trying to headbutt him. I think that's utter crap. I'll say just to keep my language PC. Um, I just don't understand it, and sort of like obviously with the people we were with yesterday, Arsenal fans saying to us, "He's so lucky." It's sort of like it's probably a red 99 out of 100 times. I think personally they didn't send him off is because they didn't want a red card in the biggest game of the season. And unless he actually physically went through with the headbutt, and Haaland's got a blooded nose or something, they were going to try and not give red cards for that. That's how I sort of view it. I think it should probably be a red card in today's game. It obviously didn't matter in the end, but I was I wasn't surprised by them not giving the red card, but I do feel like I'm surprised by them trying to defend it after because I think the reasoning they gave was just rubbish. Totally honest. What did you make of the sort of the headbutt? We can put it in quotation marks if you like.
I think if Haaland would have chucked himself to the floor, Gabriel would have been off.
Which is what Haaland said in
Yeah,
his
I
post-match
I
interview.
agree. I agree with Haaland. I think Gabriel's very lucky. I think Gabriel should know better. He's a seasoned professional when he does that. And, I mean, I don't know what rivalry he has with Haaland. Haaland is a serial winner. Gabriel is not. So I don't even know why Gabriel even thinks he's in Haaland's league. And I love Gabriel. He's been my player of the season. But that's pathetic. He could have cost them at that big moment, which is unacceptable. And this is one of the factors that just keeps going round and round again. But it's unacceptable from Gabriel. And I can see why players, if they feel a touch, they do go down because that gives them a justification to give it. I'm not bothered about when they say you don't want to give a red card in the big games, etc. If they do that, then they get moaned at for not following the law. And then if they follow the law, people say, why don't you, let people have a big game, let the emotions come out. Regardless, it should have been a red. It didn't impact things overall. Um, I think Gabriel is a lucky man, and if I was Arteta, I would have been bollocking him in the changing room after that game because he could have made it worse and can be looking at a 3-game suspension when they actually need him. And this is what I say about Arsenal players. When it matters, they don't step up. And he almost showed that. He almost fouled. So,
Because if he did get sent off, City could have gone on and possibly scored more goals with that. And considering the league now looks like it could go down to goal difference, that could have been even, it would have been an even bigger swing. Because really, it's every goal that went in, and it was a 2-goal swing for it. So this could have been, I know Arsenal are ahead by 1 goal difference at the moment, but if we scored another, that meant we were in favour and the game in hand. So really could have been detrimental to it. Like possibly could have lost, and then yes, a 3-game ban. It for one of your better players. Probably, I agree with you. He's probably been your best player this season. So really, yeah, really, I think he just has. I think he does have a hatred of Haaland. I think
he
he
does. He's
loves
got a
the
short
I
fuse.
think he loves the battling. I think that
Yeah.
does get him riled up for the game. But I think he went a bit too far in this. I don't mind the
Yeah.
holding at
Like,
times, things like that. But yeah,
exactly. Would Saliba have been dragged into that situation? No.
no,
So Gabriel needed, Gabriel's walked a very fine tightrope there. So he actually needs to buck his ideas up in those moments because that was almost, it'd have been scandalous. If he would have gone off. I know they lost anyway, but he would have just felt a brunt of that.
yeah, definitely. I think he would have been a complete scapegoat of the whole game if he got sent off, and that would have been he's the reason why we lost, kind of thing. So I think it's got to be important to talk about how much does this impact the title race. Um, I know Reece, you are sort of you've said it for a while, quite a while, going Arsenal aren't going to win any trophies. This was before the League Cup final, FA Cup knockout as well. Do you still see though some twists and turns in these rest of the games? So what we've got left, I think we've got Arsenal have got 5 games, and City have got 6. Now, if both teams win them all, it goes down to complete goal difference, and it's who's better goal difference in it, which would be one of the tightest title races. The only other time I remember it being like that was City with the Aguero moment to beat United in it. But do you see both teams winning all of their games left?
I see City. I don't see Arsenal. Um, the reason I don't like I know we've said this before, and people that this if you're a first time listener, I've never believed that this side, Arsenal side, will win anything. I've not changed that argument. I've doubled down on it, and I've said it's all down to mentality. Um, what's first, I don't see City losing now. They're laughing. What Arsenal need to do is they need to go and score goals. That's what they need to do. They've got opportunities to do it, and I don't think they'll do it. That's the problem. They've still got a horrible game away to West Ham coming up. Newcastle, you don't know what team are going to turn up. And this is their own fault. They've brought it on themselves. What frustrates me overall is where was this performance last week? Where was it away to Wolves? Where was it away to Forest? And this is the point I made at Forest. This is why this team will not win anything because when it matters, they fail. Havertz, when it mattered, missed his chance. Do you know what I mean? And this is the same thing over and over again. And it's 6 seasons of it, six full seasons of it. He gets away with it, Arteta, now because it's in a title race, but this is going to be the third one in a row. Fourth one, in my opinion, the fourth one in a row he's blown. Um, due to and the thing is now it's not going to wash because there's no excuses now. So we are in the last few weeks of Arteta's reign. So Arteta now needs to prove something, win the games, win them. He's got no choice, and score goals while you're doing it. This performance shows they can score bloody goals. Eze was fantastic. Play him again. Okay, they can score goals, but it's too little, too late once again because they blew it last week. This game shouldn't have mattered yesterday, and they've gone and done it again, and this is inexcusable. And the performance is there; they can clearly do it. But this is what winds me up more. Bournemouth was a terrible performance, but we've seen that too often. When it matters, the performance is terrible. Real Madrid last season, great performance, put in a crap performance against PSG. When it matters, it's not there. And this has been my ongoing repetition, despite what, you and Jordan have said, oh, we've done this, we've done this. I said it doesn't matter because they will foul at the end and they will hand it over to City. City are going to be deserved champions because they win when it matters. So overall, it's not going to go to goal difference. Arsenal will not win their remaining games. They can spew all the social media nonsense. They can spew all the, you know, back again, blah, 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 but you blew it. It's done. Game over.
See, I'm looking at the fixtures now, and if I concentrate just on Arsenal at the moment, Newcastle at home is your next one. I sort of said this to one of our mates. It's a problem. I think it's actually more of a problem you being at home than being away. I know Newcastle are better at home than away, but with the game against Bournemouth, when I was watching that, it felt so toxic. If you just said like of the toxicity of the ground there, you'd think you were in a relegation battle, not trying to win the league. So if Newcastle get an early goal, I generally think a misplaced pass or two, the fans get start groaning and things like this, and you just feel the pressure just rising and rising. So that could be a big problem in that game. Now, if you go and score early, I think you could roll over Newcastle because I don't think they've been great this year. But I think they will. I think they will turn up because I think they do want to ruin your season because they do love
Do.
getting stuck in and things like that into Arsenal.
Yeah. And it's fully justified. And the reason the toxicity there is because it's justified because we've seen the same thing happen every single time. This was a game like Bournemouth was the game you think, look, go there, even if you win 2-1, it doesn't matter. And they were rubbish. They were awful. And it's been the same thing over and over again. They did it at Wolves, they did it at Forest. We're seeing it too many times. So when it happened, everyone's gone, it's happened again. How many times do we have to keep going through the same thing? You might as well just replay the same footage. It's just a different team they're playing. And it's inexcusable. And everything's now caught up where the pressure's now added on. But the pressure's been added on because the fans bigging up things that don't exist. And the players have done it to themselves. And you just think, like, how many times? So now it makes it worse because you're playing Newcastle, because you look at it and go, yeah, Newcastle are off form, but they're a good side. Anthony Gordon will score goals. They like to ruin people's days. Same with West Ham. And you look at that and you think, now these games carry significance because we should have been 12 points clear by now. That's why Liverpool laughed last season because they didn't have to worry about anything. So now they've got to go for it. But then you think, well, with this pressure on, can you go and do it? Play like you did Sunday. You got a chance. Play like you did against
I
Bournemouth.
think
Trouble.
if you play like you did on the game against us, you actually do win the rest of your games. I'm not saying you're going to do that. I'm saying if you put in that level performance, you will beat the rest of the teams you've got. Because I think after that, you have got the Champions League in between the next sort of the second and third game. But it's Fulham at home. I would expect you to win that game. I think Fulham are an okay side, but I don't really think they're going to really play for much.
This is the problem. Sorry to interrupt, but this is the problem is we play okay sides and we don't turn them over. We play them in August, we beat them. It's now. This is the problem. We know Harry Wilson's capable of scoring one chance for Fulham, and it's done.
Oh yeah, well, I watched Fulham score 4 goals against us.
Yeah,
All of them
we've
were
seen it.
outside the box, so they can
Yeah,
score
but
goals. Don't get me wrong.
okay, but that was a different stage of the season. If you played Fulham next week, they'd get steamrolled. That's the difference. And that's the problem is why aren't we switching on now? If you're banking points, that's a problem. So, you can't rely on other teams to do it. And this is why I've always maintained that Arsenal will hand it over because City don't need to rely. City know Arsenal will slip or City know that they're going to win their games. Arsenal will just hand it over. And this is the problem. And it's created an issue. They got to hope that West Ham
Because yeah, I was going to go on to the
pull
West Ham one.
away.
I
I
think I
mean,
think that's your toughest fixture because West Ham have got something to play for. I think they still will be in the relegation battle at that point. So they need to win or at least get a draw. So I think that is your biggest one. But if you win that game, you've got Burnley at home, and then you've got Palace away. Now, for that, Burnley at home, I do expect you to win. Then the Palace away one, it may be good fortune for you if they're in the Conference League final, because
I agree.
they will not give a damn about Arsenal that day because they've got a cup final. I think the cup final is after the league. Why the
Yeah,
hell would you care? And I would agree. I watched City. Obviously, when we won, I think we won the league, and then we had the FA Cup the next week. We played all the kids against Brentford because that's what you got to do. Because the cup final is more important because you had nothing to play for, and
this is
Palace were
it.
in that position. So I think you could be quite fortunate with 2 games to go, Burnley at home, and then a Palace who have got other priorities should be, in my opinion, 2 wins out of two, and you can definitely rack up your goal difference in them 2 games.
Yeah, you could. I think this is the thing is Burnley should be down by then. I don't mean it disrespectfully, but they should be. And then, like you said, for Palace, Oliver Glasner, well, his last game, he'd want it to be a cup final. So that's a better way to go. I mean, he's on the brink of making, of the most successful period for Palace in 1 year. So of course they're going to put all their eggs in that basket. Completely understandable. They're not going down. Okay, they're not probably going to go beyond, where they currently are, which is what? It's 13th, which is their usual spot. So they'll probably, take that. They're not going to care. They want a trophy. It's the same as Arsenal. They shouldn't care. They should want a trophy. And they've messed it up again. But my concern is I don't think they're even going to get to that stage because they've still got Newcastle and West Ham to worry about. They already fouled at the first hurdle, and that was Bournemouth. So this is the concern. But they just need to go at it now and just go all out.
Because
Score.
I wanted to move on to sort of the City fixtures because I do believe they are a tougher fixture list than Arsenal's. Because okay, we've got Burnley away midweek. That could be like our game in hand. That could be what's seen as that because that bit put us finally on the same amount of games. Although you play 2 games after before we play one, which is a bit annoying in that department. Then we've got Everton away. Everton are a really weird team with us. Over the Pep years, I've seen them beat us 4-0, drawing sort of 1-1 games. I've seen us have to come back and win 3-2 in certain games. It's not an easy place to go. And Liverpool, I know Liverpool haven't been great this season, but showed how like it's difficult to win there, and it took a 110th minute goal to win it there. So that's not great. Brentford, when we played them at their place, okay, it's different when it's at ours. The first 45 minutes, it was men versus boys. We were that dominant. It was so bad. And in the second half, it was like there was 11 different players from them, and they were. I'd say they were the better team in the second 45 minutes. So you don't know who they're going to turn up. But the one that worries me more is the Bournemouth away game. Bournemouth have been very, very good. I'm hoping they have nothing to play for at that point, but I still think they're a team that don't really care about what they're playing for. They just play. They have their way of playing, and they will continue to do it. And versus Arsenal, I thought they were very good. I know Arsenal were poor that day, but I thought they were very good and deserved the win in that. So going away, it's not an easy fixture, and they did beat us last year in that game. Then the last 2 fixtures are, funnily enough, where I was saying it's Palace at home and Villa at home. And funnily enough, both of them games, Villa could have other priorities Europa, and Palace could have other priorities the Conference League. Obviously, I don't know when that fixture is going to be for Palace. I don't think yet, but that might be just a bit too far to be like we're resting everyone for it, whereas they probably will do it for the last game of the season. So it's a funny one with the fixtures because I look at the away games we've got. We've got three at home, three away. If we can get through them away games, then I'd be more confident. But I, I, I am quite worried for the Everton away game because I really have seen such random fixtures on it where we've been proper on form and then lose, and then I've seen times where we've not been great and then win. So it's one of them games that could be really awkward for us.
Yeah, look, I don't think it's going to get to that stage. I think it is done and dusted, and again, we'll slip up and hand it to you. But I think we've had this before where we've like, oh, that's the game that's going to decide it, and you've won out comfortably. And I think that's what's going to happen at Everton. You're going to win comfortably, and it's just going to deflate everything. But that's not a discredit. That's just as simple as that is Arsenal haven't been good enough when it matters, and I think we saw that again with the forwards at the game on Sunday. That's the difference is Haaland can give you a 6 out of 10 and still get a goal. Unfortunately for Madueke, for Martinelli, you know, Grokeres as well, I suppose, Havertz, they either give you a 10 out of 10 or they drop to zero. And that's the real problem. That's the real issue. And I don't know what that is. I don't get why all of them seem to do that. You know, that's the big problem. But like I said, I've always believed the title was done ages ago. But lo and behold, let the best team win, I suppose, is the overall argument. It's done, it's dusted, and unfortunately, Arsenal again once again have brought it on themselves. But City are laughing, and like I said, this is Arteta's last few weeks in charge, and unfortunately, I think it's 2 years too late for Arteta. He should have been gone in 2024.
Well, your days on Instagram does say how long you've wanted him out of the job. That's all we've got time for. Let us know what you thought of the game. Did City deserve to win, or was there other sort of factors in there that we've not considered that was a big impact on the game? And how do you think the title race is going to go? Is there going to be more twists and turns? Reese thinks there will be for Arsenal, but not for City. I'm a bit 50-50. I'll be totally honest. I think both teams won't win all their games. Tell me what you think in the comments. And as always, you know the drill.